Okay. Hello, everyone. Okay, so this is a part of an evolving paper that I would be very happy to have your feedbacks to modify it over time. So this paper examines how changes in scientific knowledge and the wider intellectual climate of different periods shape the interpretations of the harmony between science and religion by four notable Baha'i scholars: Ali Murad Davoodi, William Hatcher, Farzam Arbab, and Todd Smith. Instead of viewing their insights as purely theological statements, this study places their work within the social and historical contexts that influence their perspective on science and religion. Okay, yeah.
To move.
Bye.
How to do that. First of all, this may do it. Oh, okay, hold on. Get maybe this to share. I have to stop sharing. I have to share again. If I share this.
So 30 minutes starts when I start it, yeah.
Share that. How do you get this thing to work? I can't remember how to solve this problem. Oh, there it goes. Okay. There we go. Where do you want to go? There you go. Now it'll go.
Thank you. Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay. By tracing how contemporary scientific theories, philosophical currents, and cultural conditions influence these thinkers, the paper reveals a dynamic interplay between scientific knowledge and religious principle, demonstrating that their understandings are not static, but are actively shaped by the epistemic environment of their times. Their approach allows us to appreciate how shifts in scientific paradigms, developments in the philosophy of science, and the broader intellectual landscape contributed to an evolving articulation of one of the Baha'i faith's central tenets. Throughout this talk, I will highlight this thread as a guiding framework to illuminate the nuanced and historically situated nature of their contributions to the science-religion discourse. This paper explores the intellectual history of the principle of the harmony of science and religion within the Baha'i faith through an analysis of the writings of four prominent Baha'i scholars, as I mentioned. Over the last 50 years, these thinkers have developed and reflected on the principle of harmony of science and religion, conceptualizing it in diverse ways that demonstrate an evolving understanding of both its theoretical foundation and practical implications. Okay, Ali Murad Davoodi was a distinguished professor of philosophy at the University of Tehran, and notably the first Iranian to earn a PhD in philosophy. Because of his belief in the Baha'i faith, he was abducted in the early years following the Islamic Revolution, and his fate remains unknown. Davoodi's intellectual legacy is preserved notably in two books compiled and edited by Wahid Rafati, Man in the Baha'i Faith, or Insan dar Ain Baha'i, and Divinity and Manifestation, or Uluhiyat و Mazhariyat, which include his important essay on science and religion. Davoodi approached science and religion as two distinct but complementary epistemological systems. He defined science as a body of knowledge, quote, as a body of knowledge that humans acquire about the general relationships among the phenomena of things, unquote. According to him, science arises from the application of reason to guide experience, organize and unify observations based on necessary innate principles such as causality and non-contradiction. The content of science consists of diverse empirical experiences gathered through sensory perception and conscious reflection. The form of science is the general relationships that unify these multiplicities. Reason is the human faculty that established these relationships, according to Davudi, grounded on innate principles that human nature compels us to accept, like causality and non-contradiction. The ultimate outcome of science is human mastery over natural forces expressed in technological and material achievements. Davudi emphasized that science's primary tools are human reasons, experimentation, and observation. He viewed science as a method for discovering patterns and theories that explain the natural world and uncover the fundamental relationships that underpin the diverse phenomena of the universe. Science doesn't prescribe ultimate meaning or purpose, rather, it is a means of understanding reality, whether beautiful or ugly, without defining moral or existential goals. In contrast, Davudi defined religion as a set of beliefs that endow human life with meaning. Religion identifies ultimate goals and desired perfection in the created world. It instills confidence in the human heart, assuring the persistence of selfhood, clarifying one's place in existence, and maintaining the relationship between the individual and the originating source, as well as the ultimate destination. Religion enables a person to walk confidently, filled with hope, leaving anxiety behind, and to be assured of stability, light, and unity beyond worldly changes, darkness, and division. This trust and conviction bring about expansion, attraction, and joy. Thus, Davudi proposed that both science and religion seek to discover unknowns but operate in separate domains. Science in the material and social realms, religion in a spiritual reality. Science draws on reason, while religion draws on revelation. Science identifies phenomena of experience, while religion provides life's meaning and ultimate purpose. Science functions as a tool without prescribing direction or goals. Religion sets the desired ends. In this view, science and religion are independent systems with different functions, but complement one another in fostering a better world. Davudi argued that conflicts between science and religion are not inherent, but arise from misinterpretation or sociocultural conditions. Historically, during the Middle Ages, religion was seen as a system encompassing explanations for the material world and resisted the rise of a modern science by restricting its scope and validating scientific claims only by religious authority. Conversely, in the modern era, science often dismisses religion as irrelevant, elevating reason above revelation and confining religion to a subordinate supervised role. Davudi saw this historical pattern of either science suppressing religion or religion suppressing science as a failure of coexistence. From his Bahá'í perspective, Davudi asserted that neither science nor religion should reject or override the other. They each should be recognized in their own spheres, mutually respected and accepted without interference or hierarchical domination. He warned against blending scientific facts with religious truth because science evolves and corrects itself over time. Today's accepted theories may be revised or rejected in the future. Consequently, mixing scientific knowledge with religious beliefs risks undermining faith if scientific claims are later disproven. Davudi further conceptualized science as partial reason, gradually perfecting itself, and faith as universal reason. He acknowledged that temporary conflicts between science findings and religion might occur, but believed these tensions would resolve as science advances. So his understanding is looks like a bit static on the religious knowledge or religion. Religion and religious systems should not oppose scientific progress or seek to control it by religious authority. Rather, they should allow science to follow its natural course in pursuit of truth. Ultimately, quote, science and religion both arrive at the same destination, where reason and faith embrace in the presence of absolute truth, unquote. His ideas, formulated in the 70s, provided a foundation for a constructive dialogue on science and religion, emphasizing their independence, but complementary roles, and laid the groundwork for later Baha'i scholars who have expanded on and sometimes reinterpreted these concepts. William Hatcher, a leading American Baha'i philosopher and prominent Platonic thinker, offers an integrative view of science and religion. He opposes a strict separation and instead stresses their complementary roles in understanding reality. In works like The Science of Religion and Logic and Logos, Hatcher critiques reductionist materialism and advocates for a broader epistemological approach. Hatcher contrasts with Ali Murad Dawudi by rejecting a strict divide between science and religion. He argued that science extends beyond what is immediately observable, citing invisible phenomena like gravity and fundamental particles. This view opens space for recognizing spiritual realities, such as God, as valid and real despite their invisibility. Hatcher highlights structural and methodological similarities between science and religion. Both rely on communities that validate knowledge through shared criteria and social processes. Religious experiences, like scientific observations, gain credibility through communal validation, challenging the notion that religious knowledge is irrational or unverifiable. He further argues that science and religion share rational, systematic inquiry, but differ in goals. Science investigates the physical universe, while religion explores spiritual truth and moral meaning. Hatcher sees both as social activities dependent on their communities, enabling continuous refinement for both of them. His work frames religion as a structured, evolving system similar to science. Hatcher identifies significant obstacles to achieving harmony between science and religion, among which he highlights religious fundamentalism and scientific materialism. Religious fundamentalism, characterized by rigid literalism and absolutism, impedes constructive dialogue by presenting religious truths as unchallengeable dogmas. This stance often results in confrontation when scientific findings appear to contradict literal religious interpretation. On the other hand, scientific materialism, a philosophical stance rather than empirical science, asserts the non-existence of spiritual realities and confines inquiry exclusively to the physical realm. Hatcher also highlights an equally significant barrier from the scientific side, which he terms scientific materialism. This philosophical stance, often confused with science itself, denies the existence of God or spirituality. Hatcher argues that such metaphysical claims fall outside the scope of empirical science, which studies the physical world and is inherently open to revision and extension as new evidence emerges, an understanding echoed by Paul Lampel later in Revelation and Social Reality. Science, by its nature, embodies humility. It doesn't and cannot claim final, absolute knowledge given the vast complexity of the universe and limited scope of current human understanding. Furthermore, Hatcher highlights the dynamic and evolving nature of scientific knowledge, characterized by continuous revision and self-correction. Because of this, claims of scientific certainty on metaphysical questions such as the non-existence of God unwarranted on conflict with the inherently tentative and provisional character of scientific theories. The method of science is better understood as a self-conscious application of human faculties, reason, observation, intuition, toward constructing models of reality with no inherent bias against metaphysical or spiritual phenomena. This critical distinction allows Hatcher to reject the perceived conflict between science and religion as a false dichotomy stemming from misinterpretation on both sides, dogmatic religion and reductive materialism. By emphasizing the evolving nature of scientific knowledge and the social validation processes of both science and religion, Hatcher presents a framework for mutual respect and constructive dialogue. Farzam Arbab made significant contributions to the discourse on the harmony between science and religion. He combined the scientific expertise with decades of philosophical inquiry, educational innovation, and community development work. Arbab, like Hatcher, framed science and religion as two knowledge and action systems that contribute to human progress. Rather than reducing one to the other or seeing them as entirely separate or unrelated, he proposes a sophisticated middle ground. His analysis carefully avoids undermining the legitimacy or efficacy of scientific methods, emphasizing that any meaningful harmony requires a science fully understood in its complexity and a religion freed from superstition. Arbab critiques simplistic accounts of science that reduce it merely to observation and experimentation. Drawing on mid-20th century philosophy of science, Arbab underscores the importance of moving beyond naive empiricism to appreciate science as a dynamic and socially embedded endeavor influenced by theory, culture, and values. This perspective acknowledges that scientific facts and theories are shaped within communities and contexts, which aligns with the social and interpretive nature of religious knowledge. Essential conceptual contribution in Arbab's work is the adoption of the principle of complementarity from quantum mechanics as a metaphor for science-religion relationship. Although he cautions against a direct transfer of quantum theory concepts to social and spiritual realms, he highlights the necessity of multiple, sometimes seemingly contradictory descriptions to fully comprehend complex realities. In this analogy, science and religion represent complementary epistemologies addressing different dimensions of human experience, material and spiritual, both essential for a holistic understanding. Arbab further analyzes prevailing models of science-religion relationship. He identifies three common but insufficient frameworks. One, religion as a subsidiary to science, where religious claims are ultimately validated or invalidated by scientific progress. Two, science as subordinate to religion, positing that all scientific truths are contained implicitly within sacred texts. And three, is strict independence, where science and religion operate in isolated spheres within minimal interaction. Rejecting these, Arbab advocates for a fourth model, recognizing both as integrated system of knowledge and practice overlapping and interrelated in ways that enable constructive dialogue and joint contribution to civilization's advancement. In addressing the nature of science, Arbab draws heavily on key 20th century philosophers such as Popper, Quine, Paul, and Lakatos, whose theories reveal the complexity, fallibility, and social embeddedness of scientific inquiry. He highlights Popper's falsibility criterion, Quine's holism, Quine paradigms, and scientific revolutions, and Lakatos' research program to argue against simplistic, absolutist view of science. These insights allow Arbab to challenge rigid boundaries and to propose a more flexible understanding where scientific knowledge evolves through communal processes, theory-laden observation, and continuous revision. Farzam Arbab's approach to the relationship between science and religion is characterized by a sophisticated understanding that treats both as a distinct yet overlapping system of knowledge and practice, each with its own domain, but with intersecting questions and methods. Unlike unlike simplistic views that either reduce religion to superstition or subordinate science entirely to religious doctrine, Arbab argues for a complementarity that recognizes the limitation and the strengths of both. He draws on the analogy of complementarity from quantum mechanics, as I mentioned before, not to directly transpose physical principle, but to suggest just as nature may require dual prescription, like wave-particle duality, so too the complex reality encompassing both spiritual and physical aspects may require dual modes of understanding, science and religion. In this framework, Arbab stresses that science and religion explore overlapping but not identical domains, and that attempt to sharply separate or wholly merge them fail to capture the true dynamics of knowledge and reality. He further underscores that the metaphysical assumptions underlying scientific paradigms and the vast range of existential and moral questions addressed by religion must both be taken seriously and understood as interrelated. Compared to Dawoodi and Hatcher, who also engage with the science-religion dialogue, Arbab places a more explicit emphasis on the history and philosophy of science as vital to understanding the nature of scientific knowledge. A key contribution of Arbab's work is his engagement with the philosophy of mind and consciousness, particularly through the work of Thomas Nagel. Arbab summarizes Nagel's argument as an example of how scientific objectivity might be broadened beyond the physical sciences to encompass phenomena like consciousness, reason, and values, which resist reduction to purely physical explanations. Nagel critiques physicalism and reductionism, arguing for an expanded objectivity that acknowledges a reality richer than what current scientific methods fully capture. Importantly, Nagel's concept of natural teleology, a non-intentional but biased form of purposefulness in nature, is highlighted by Arbab as a possible bridge in the science-religion dialogue, offering a naturalistic framework that is distinct from both strict materialism and traditional theistic creationism. Thus, Arbab's argument on Nagel exemplifies his broader project to incorporate developments in the philosophy of science and mind to articulate a nuanced understanding of reality that allows science and religion to complement rather than conflict with each other. His use of history of science and philosophy of mind enriches the discourse by showing that the methods and objects of science are more complex and less monolithic than often assumed, and that religion, understood through progressive revelation, offers a knowledge and insight on existential and moral realities that science alone cannot address fully. In summary, Arbab advances the science and religion dialogue by emphasizing their status as overlapping but distinct systems of knowledge and practice, drawing on advanced philosophy of science, philosophers like Kuhn, Popper, Quine, Lakatos to describe the nature and evolution of scientific knowledge, incorporating philosophy of mind insights from Nagel, for example, to challenge reductionist physicalism and broaden the notion of objectivity, propose a form of complementarity between science and religion, inspired by, but not directly equated to quantum complementarity, and advancing a view of religion grounded in progressive revelation that adapts to humanity's evolving understanding. This approach contrasts with Dawoodi's focus, which is more historical and theological in nature, often emphasizing religion's spiritual and social dimensions, and Hatcher's, which tends towards integrating scientific concepts with Bahá'í theology in a more theological or metaphysical mode. Arbab's distinctive contribution lies in his engagement with the philosophy of science and mind as a foundational framework that enriches and grounds the harmony between science and religion in contemporary intellectual discourse.
7 minutes.
Okay. Todd Smith's It's really difficult to talk about your argument here. Could you live here? Okay. Todd Smith's central argument addresses the need to move beyond the often polarized debate that frames science and religion as inherently opposed or incompatible. Instead, he proposes a dynamic, multidimensional interplay where science and religion complement, correspond with, and reinforce each other to enrich human understanding and promote social progress. A foundational philosophical insight Smith draws on to deepen the dialogue is the theory-latedness of observation, a key concept from the philosophy of science. This idea asserts that scientific observation is never neutral or pure, but is always influenced by the theoretical lenses, metaphysical commitments, and ethical assumptions scientists bring to their work. Religious worldviews can serve as foundational ontological assumptions that shape scientific inquiry. For example, a religion affirming the unity and equality of all human beings can guide scientists to approach research questions with a commitment to social justice, thereby avoiding interpretations that perpetuate inequality or prejudice. Conversely, dominant materialist or reductionist assumptions in science may obscure alternative explanations that incorporate spiritual or ethical dimensions. Smith illustrates this with historical and contemporary examples where cultural and philosophical biases have affected scientific claims, such as outdated diagnoses of hysteria attributed to women, later recognized as in-tune with patriarchal social structures rather than objective medical reality. Closely related to the interplay between science and religion is the concept of underdetermination of scientific theories, which Smith highlights as a key example. Underdetermination occurs when empirical evidence alone cannot decisively favor one theory over others, allowing multiple coherent explanations to coexist. In such cases, non-empirical criteria, ethical, existential, or metaphysical, become essential for guiding theory choice. Religious values and ontologies can thus provide important framework for prioritizing among competing scientific explanations. For example, when different theories equally explain social phenomena like poverty, religious commitments to human dignity and social justice help emphasize systematic causes over individual blame, enriching scientific reasoning by integrating moral considerations alongside empirical data. Smith also critiques scientific reductionism and the preferences for simplicity, often guided by Occam razors. While simplicity is valued both epistemically for clarity and explanatory power, and non-epistemically for pragmatic or aesthetic reasons, rigid adherence risks oversimplifying complex realities or dismissing valuable perspectives. Historical examples like the Copernican revolution show that initially complex or counterintuitive theories can better explain phenomena. Here, religion's ethical and ontological insight act as a corrective to reductionism, encouraging more nuanced and integrative interpretation that acknowledges the multifaceted nature of reality beyond simplistic models. Smith argues that religion enriches scientific awareness by integrating empirical inquiry with ethical and existential perspective. It promotes an organic view of nature that values both the environment and humanity, contrasting critics like Foucault's portrayal of science as mere social control. Religious principles inspire stewardship, justice, and long-term human flourishing beyond material gain. He also highlights the communal nature of scientific progress, which depends on trust, cooperation, and shared values within research communities. Religion fosters virtues such as honesty, humility, and service, creating ethical environments that support collaboration, innovation, and integrity, contributing often overlooked in discussions of science. Finally, Smith emphasizes that the Baha'i faith places science at the heart of human advancement, with teachings guiding collective social transformation. Baha'i institution promotes learning, evidence-based decisions, and ethical engagement with science to build just, unified society, demonstrating the productive collaboration between science and religion that Smith advocates. And here is the conclusion. This study of Ali Murad Dawudi, William Hatcher, Farzam Arbab, and Todd Smith demonstrates how their interpretations of the Baha'i principle of harmony between science and religion are deeply shaped by the evolving scientific knowledge and intellectual context of their times. Rather than isolated theological claims, their views reflect responses to shifting scientific paradigms, philosophical developments, and socio-cultural conditions. From Dawudi's mid-century 70s epistemological separation grounded in reason and revelation, to Hatcher's critique of scientific materialism and emphasis on methodological parallels, through Arbab's engagement with post-positivist philosophy and complexity, culminating in Smith's contemporary dynamic interplay, informed by insights such as theory-ladenness and underdetermination. Dawudi's approach emphasizes distinct but complementary domains for science and religion, shaped by historical pattern of conflict and coexistence, while Hatcher moves towards integration by recognizing the legitimacy of unseen spiritual realities and the communal validation of knowledge. Arbab advances this dialogue with a sophisticated system perspective, drawing on philosophy of science and mind to highlight the evolving socially embedded nature of scientific knowledge and its complementarity with religion. Smith further expands the discussion by underscoring the ethical and social dimensions of science, showing how religious values influence scientific inquiry and promote collaborative progress, addressing contemporary challenges through a multidimensional framework. Together, these thinkers reflect progressive evolution in the Baha'i intellectual tradition that parallels broader shifts in philosophy and science. Their diverse yet complementary perspective offer a nuanced and historically situated understanding of the science-religion harmony principle as both a theological ideal and an adaptive practice. This evolving dialogue provides a rich foundation for fostering constructive engagement between science and religion today, embodying the Baha'i vision of integrating epistemic rigor with a spiritual insight to support human progress and social transformation. Thank you so much.